guess I can get into genetics now. So if you've made it, this far, in researching your heritage, then you're probably gonna want to know a little. You're probably gonna want to invest more into it. And what I mean by invest more into it is you're gonna want to then start looking at different DNA tests that you could take in order to confirm for sure that you actually descend from these groups, right? So how I did that was, I got lucky, really. In college, around the same time I was actually learning my history and stuff, there was an opportunity that I got to get a free African ancestry DNA test. African Ancestry is like the main DNA testing company for Africans to trace their ethnic lineage. And the science behind their specific test, I think is superb, but that's my opinion. But there's different types of DNA tests that you could take to give you this information. So let me get into that. So DNA it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, right? It's pretty much information that is like biological information. Literally, it's just code. It's like how you have like code on a computer to make the computer run certain operations. Your body has codes. And the computer has zeros and ones. We have A, T, G, and all of those, and C's, right? That is what your DNA is. And your DNA is wrapped up in bundles and what's called a chromosome. And your chromosomes are located in your nucleus of every single one of your cells, meaning that every single one of your cells has its own set of DNA. And that DNA is pretty much just a code for how to create a you. You know what I'm saying? So that's what DNA is. So there's technology nowadays. We are living in 2020. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought we was going to have flying cars by now, but we have what's called, PCR, polymerase chain reaction. Like I said, I'm a science major, so I did some of these things when I was in college during like internships and stuff. But, it's important to have a general concept of what this is on a scientific level, because people tend to not believe DNA tests and think it's a hoax for some reason. I don't like seeing scientific illiteracy like that. So you have your DNA, and in certain companies, they look at certain portions of your DNA. And that is where it gets interesting, because your whole DNA in your whole body, that's called your genome, right? And your genome is what comprises your whole DNA makeup. So when people say they mix, that just means that they have different DNA in their genome from different types of people. That's all that means when they say they're mixed, right? They're not actually, like, their DNA isn't just like in Spider-Man when the spider bit Peter Parker and the spider DNA got mixed into the other, it's not that simple, you know what I'm saying? But, it kind of is. So I'll go over the different type of DNA tests, because that's a question somebody asked. So let me get into that. So the first DNA test I took was 23andMe. A lot of people know about 23andMe. And that is a genomic autosomal DNA test, meaning it has your whole entire genome that it's analyzing. And so that is when I was able to see how much percent of me is African, how much percent of me is European, Native, all the rest, right? And to be honest, I wasn't, but I was kind of surprised by what I saw. But in retrospect, it doesn't even matter to me now, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm African. The over 80% of my DNA is African. So, majority rules, I guess, whatever. But there's Ancestry.com, also an autosomal DNA test, tells you, general percentages. And honestly, I want to caution people to taking those tests for many reasons. I might get into that in another video, but just be cautionary when it comes to non-black owned businesses in general. If you're a black person, African Ancestry, the one I was referring to before, is actually a black owned genetic testing company, and it's honestly 17 years. I think it's the oldest DNA testing company on the market right now. You can go ask Gina Page for confirmation on that. But that's what I think. So I took theirs in college. I got lucky. I won a contest. I was able to take it for free. It's very expensive. So that's why I said I was lucky. And that's when I was able to trace my mother's direct lineage all the way to Africa, all the way to a specific ethnic group in Africa, in a country called Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau. Two places, you know? And when I took that test and I got that information, it just opened up a whole nother doorway to research, right? So then I found myself researching, okay, who are these people that this piece of paper says I come from, right? And then I have a whole, you can watch my YouTube video, my first one I ever made on, you know, that whole experience with the genetic testing, right? But the main one you want to take if you are somebody in the diaspora that wants to know and reconnect with a specific tribe, if you will, or ethnic group, you want to take African ancestry DNA test, right? And that's not a plug or anything. I'm not paid to say that. That is just my honest opinion. And that's what I would suggest for you. Once you get there, though, like everything opens up. By now on your Sankofa journey, you have Fayeng Dan, which means big power, a lot of power, because you have so much information not only on your ethnic lineage through the DNA testing, but also from, you know, the research that you did on, you know, the history of how your ancestors even got here. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of gives you two pieces of the puzzle. It gives you who you were in Africa, and then doing the research, it then gives you who you are now. You know, who your immediate ancestors were, you know, and then this is who your ancient ancestors were. Come together, you're a full rooted human being.